Hi there, greetings, salutations, and shall I say Happy New Year. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. We did not plan on dressing the same today, but we kind of did. That's a little embarrassing.
Oh, look at that.
But a New Year's resolution is that's the last time that will happen. As we get ready to roll Derek into, it is resume day, baby. Resume day, right?
That's right. You just got to make it to 2025, and then LinkedIn says a full another year of employment that you had. I'm wearing black today for the 2024 Colts season.
Oh, you're in mourning. The season's not over.
Yeah, it's over.
No, it's not. They got a game left. Big one.
It's over.
Showdown.
Man.
Big rival.
It is
Jacksonville
over.
Coming in. Cap off the holiday festivities. A Sunday game. Lucas Oil Stadium. Get amped. Zoop's going to be out there lifting tractors.
Oh, my God.
They're going to be juggling knives. Blue's going to be out there throwing footballs. This is a chance, Derek. This is a chance for a football team to go out there, smack a division rival right in the mouth, and secure themselves an 8th win for the year.
This is making me extremely depressed. Just all of those things that are a big no to me. I will say we've been doing this show for a long time, almost 15 years or whatever, and I've kind of been around when you're around the indies, any sports market for 20 years about professionally, you see a little bit of everything, right? Whether it be IU basketball or the amount of changes with the Indianapolis 500 over the years, or obviously the Colts. I can tell you, I can count on one hand how many times I've been truly shocked by a performance, and I just was not mentally prepared for the Colts giving up 45 points to the 2024 New York Giants to end their season. I was not prepared for that outcome. I was prepared for them losing to Jacksonville, right? Because it's Jacksonville. I know they're at home and it's a little bit different, but it's Jacksonville. It's a division rival. Like, I didn't think anything of it. When the Bengals won in overtime against the Broncos, I thought to myself, oh, great. So the playoff chances are going to carry into Week 18. Like, it did not cross my mind that the Colts were going to, A, lose that game, or B, get totally embarrassed.
Here's the thing. And I have no idea, probably unlikely, that these two things are connected. And as a younger man, Derek, I probably would have immediately gone on here and drawn conclusion A to B and said, here's definitively what happened. This is ridiculous. You should be ashamed. I'm simply presenting a theory, okay? About, I'm going to guess, 3 to 4 hours before that game started, Ian Rappaport, who is kind of like the old Woj or Shams, he's
on that Mount Rushmore with Schefter and those guys.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
He's got a pretty good idea what's going on. He comes out with a column basically saying the Indianapolis Colts are all in on Anthony Richardson next year, and while it didn't list any other personnel people, the tone of the article and the report insinuated that the Colts are going to run it back next year, okay? Now, I'm not naive enough to think that means that the players are all sitting in the locker room before the game, scouring on Twitter and everything else, reading everything about them. Mm-hmm. But one would have to assume that if Ian Rappaport is getting that report, that it is a conversation within the locker room or within the franchise itself of the way the table is being set for 2025. That, to me, looked like a team that went out there in that game knowing the season's on the line, knowing that a loss eliminates them from the postseason, knowing that the two things that had to happen to fall their way to get them into the postseason that were beyond their control went their way the night before. The Chargers won, and the Cincinnati Bengals came back and beat Denver. So the playoffs are still in play. And you have this report that the Colts are seemingly going to keep the band together. And by that I mean Chris Ballard, Shanestyken, Gus Bradley. That looked to me like a team that said, we want no part of that. I'm not trying to let down my brothers. I'm not trying to let down my roster, but this ain't working, and I'm not down with that. And if they're going to keep the same song and dance and we're going to try to do the same old thing, then I'm not here for it. Because in that game, notably, late in the game, Giants are up 2 points. They've already inexplicably scored 35 points in the game. The Giants are up 2 points with under 3 minutes to go, and Drew Lock,
who stinks,
who I mean, if you want to know, Drew Lock was part of the, like, what are we going to do for the Broncos? He's the Jacoby Brissett of the Denver Broncos, right? Drew Lock, who until Thanksgiving this year hadn't stepped on a football field this year. Drew Lock, who this time a year ago didn't know where he was going to be playing in 25, is sitting there looking over a line knowing that a score on a 3rd and goal from the 5 probably secures the game. And the play is broken, and he sees a lane, and Drew Lock, who nobody is going to confuse for Fran Tarkenton or Michael Vick or anything, Drew Lock manages to score partially because DeForest Buckner gave a decent rush. And then after that, everybody was kind of like, okay. I'll kind of jog into the shot, a little bit, I guess. It was the most haphazard, lifeless, passionless defensive effort that this franchise has seen in quite some time. And
since 3 weeks ago against New England.
Yeah, that looked like a team. Right. Like when DeForest Buckner comes out afterwards and goes, look, there are going to have to be some changes. Guys quit. That's a locker room of quitters. They quit.
It's just it's a bunch of guys that don't know how to win and don't know how to lead. Say what you want about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's a really good player, right? He doesn't know how to win. He doesn't know how to lead. Quentin Nelson doesn't know how to win. He doesn't know how to lead. Michael Pittman Jr. doesn't know how to win. Doesn't know how to lead. Kenny Moore doesn't know how to win. Doesn't know how to lead because they haven't done it. They don't win and they don't lead, right? The results indicate the results are they don't win, and the results are they don't lead. And I think those two things are connected. And I was on board with this idea of bringing back all of those players with the extensions last year. It made sense, right? They're proven players. Like, I know that Michael Pittman Jr. is a good player. I know that Kenny Moore is a good player. I know that Grover Stewart is a good player. But the problem is that there is something beyond that the Colts are lacking. The Colts aren't lacking good players. They have a couple of good players. What they don't have is guys that know how to win and guys that know how to lead. And I think it's just, this talk about culture and all of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever, culture. It's one of those buzzwords, right? But it's true. When you go 10 years without doing anything or producing any sort of a tangible result, and most of these guys have been around for 4 to 8 years of that, or 4 to 6 years of that, at least the core of this team, that's a big problem.
Derek, at the beginning of the year, Chris Ballard, I think in the last time that he met with the media was at the beginning of the season. I could be wrong in that, but in terms of an all-gathering press conference, state of the franchise type thing, Chris Ballard's last time doing that was at the beginning of the year. He doesn't owe the media anything. I'm not saying that, but I do think that from a fan standpoint, we're the conduit between them to an extent. I mean, obviously now they can cut out that middleman, but even then he's not. He does a radio deal, I think, but I don't think he's regularly answering to questions fans have. That's his prerogative. I understand that, right? And I don't think he's a bad person. I don't know him personally. Disingenuous to say that I do. But none of this is personal, what I'm about to say. He took a cheap shot at me once, but whatever. I mean, it's kind of in good spirit. None of this is personal, what I'm about to say. But the reality is this. Chris Ballard has said now for 2 consecutive years at the beginning of the year that you can have some guys of questionable maturity or character on your roster so long as your culture is such that your leaders are setting the tone and your mature players are setting a tone of professionalism that can offset where you got guys that are a little bit of a risk. In addition to that, he said at the beginning of this year very clearly, look, it's easy to fall into the temptation of doing what the masses want you to do. But I strongly believe in the way I've built this roster. I strongly believe in these guys. I like these guys. And so therefore, this is what I'm going to do because I believe in it. And if it doesn't work out, you can fire me. Well, the reality is this. Typically, on an NFL franchise, the quarterback is automatically a leader. Even if I don't care if you go out and Barney Fife is your quarterback, the position alone dictates that guy is a leader for your team. So the leader for the Indianapolis Colts is a young player who, in a key moment this year, took himself out of a game because he said he was tired, right? Whether or not you agree with that decision to do that, having the immaturity to admit that's why you took yourself out of the game is a bit of a problem, and that became an issue. Secondly, another player that lists as a leader on a roster is one of your best players. Jonathan Taylor is one of their best players. When the game was on the line in a critical moment, in a critical must-have game that everybody knew was the game of the week that the Colts had to have, he didn't have the foresight to hold on to the football long enough in scoring a touchdown. He dropped it, makes a costly error, cost them the game. Yeah, I know, it's a full game. I get it, but you get what I'm saying. They have no leadership in the areas that Chris Ballard needed and professed to have leadership. They have nobody in that roster that holds people accountable, and that seemingly starts at the top. It's not me saying Chris Ballard needs to be fired because of the shortcomings this year. It's Chris Ballard saying he needs to be fired. That's what he said at the beginning of the year. If I get fired for this, so be it. But I like our guys, and this is how I'm going to do it because I don't want to vacillate to what everybody else wants me to do. So he stuck by his guns. I commend him for that. Bottom line is his gun shot blanks, and he's the one that said he needs to be fired. Now, whether or not that happens, different story. May or may not. I don't know the answer either way, but I know this. This is going to tell us over the next couple of weeks how visible and how upfront Jim Irsay truly is in that franchise behind the scenes, because in the past, we would have heard from Irsay probably already. And, obviously Jim Irsay's had his own very serious health issues. My understanding is, thankfully, he has come back from that and is in a pretty good place from a health standpoint. But he has definitely taken a step back. If that step back stays, maybe that's good news for Chris Ballard. But I think we're going to find out a lot here over the next week or two.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And it's almost like this flow chart of blame where it starts at the top, you're right, but it trickles down to everybody. Like you mentioned Anthony Richardson, and I'm not going to blindly defend him, but who is Anthony Richardson going to learn from that you don't tap out? Should he just know that, or should somebody tell him that?
Because it certainly seems as though they got a guy in Joe Flacco in there that didn't have a whole lot of interest in sitting down regularly and tutoring Anthony Richardson. It goes
back to the other problems. Like, who's going to tell Anthony Richardson not to do something when Jonathan Taylor doesn't win and he doesn't lead, and Kenny Moore doesn't win and he doesn't lead, and Quentin Nelson doesn't win and he doesn't lead? You don't have anybody to do that. Whereas you go back 15 years ago when this franchise was great and you had a dozen guys. Gary Brackett was like the from a talent standpoint, like the 17th best player on that team, and he had more leadership in his pinky finger than anybody on this current Colts team.
One of the things that I think with each passing year, and I'm going to state the obvious, and it's the most tired subject of all time. As a matter of fact, this narrative should be officially retired in Indianapolis, but we can't yet. I long for the day when we are able to put this narrative to rest, okay? With no disrespect to Bill Polian, who, is a Hall of Famer, understandably, justifiably so. I think we, with each passing year, become – maybe it's just me. Maybe I was just naive. We see more and more that the brand of the Indianapolis Colts for 12 years was Peyton Manning. It was not the work of a great franchise or culture or for the shoe and all that. It was Peyton Manning.
I mean, winning is what culture is, right? At the end of the day, you got to win to have culture. Teams that have culture aren't losers, right? So those things always kind of go hand in hand. But, I mean, how many Hall of Famers did you have in that group? I mean, Reggie Wayne probably is going to get in this year, right? And even the guys that
Marvin
and even the guys who aren't Hall of Famers are right. Jeff Saturday and Robert Mathis are about as close to being a Hall of Famer without, and I don't think either of them. Maybe this is a conversation for a different day. I don't think Mathis is going to get in.
I would tend to agree with that.
I don't. But Ring of Honor guys, right? And they belong up there. Whereas I don't know how many Ring of Honor guys. I don't know. Maybe Zaire Franklin can keep making 140 empty tackles every year and get in the Ring of Honor. I don't know. And have them all be meaningless and never factor into an actual win that matters. But I don't know. It's just, we're going to sit here for the next however many 45 minutes or whatever, and we're going to do this all offseason long because it's a lost season, right? It's another lost season, and we're going to keep kind of bringing up the same topics. But at the end of the day, Jake, I'm sad. Like, I'm just deeply sad that I saw a statistic the other day, or somebody pointed this out, and I knew this, but it's almost like when they point it out to you, then you have the realization, like, oh my God, it's been that long? It's been 10 years since they hosted a playoff game.
It's crazy, isn't it?
it was a given every year that
Derek,
you go to the RCA Dome or you go to Lucas Oil Stadium for at least one home playoff game, if not more. Like, they missed it 4 straight years now. They've won one playoff game in 10 years. It's just insane to me that I know it's been a long time, right? And Colts fans have been suffering for a long time, but in a lot of ways, 2014 or 2009 doesn't feel that long ago, yet it is. And we have like this decade-long sample size now of this team continuously underachieving year after year after year. And it's sad for a franchise that, look, it's not the Steelers, it's not the Packers, right? But they were viewed as being one of the respected franchises of the league. And now you ask most people around the league, like you ask like a Ravens fan or something, hey, what do you think about, well, maybe not a Ravens fan, but like,
Derek,
you ask a Niners fan, what do you think about the Colts? They'd be like, oh, okay. And also ran.
I was talking to Paul Dalby. I don't know if you know Paul or not, but he lives in Central Illinois. He's a big IndyCar guy. And we were talking just the other day, and he's a Bears fan, but I mentioned the Colts, and he said, it's funny. He goes, they've just become totally anonymous.
Yeah, who cares?
And it's somebody outside of Indianapolis, right? Totally anonymous. Yeah. Now, I believe this is correct. I'm going off the top of my head, which can be dangerous. The last time the Colts won the division was
2014.
If I'm not mistaken, every other team in the division has won at least twice since then.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
Right? Twice.
Yeah, at least twice.
The Jacksonville Jaguars have won
Tennessee's
twice
won twice,
since then.
and Houston's won 6 of them. And you know what the most damning stat is? 7 of the 10 AFC South winners in that time have won 10 games or fewer. That's how low the bar is. Do you know how many 12-game winners there have been, AFC South champions that have won at least 12 games?
2. Is it Houston?
The 2021 Titans.
Yeah.
Every other NFL division has produced at least 6 12-win 12-plus. I mean, look at the NFC North this year, right? This division's not only does this division suck at the top, like Houston stinks. They're not any good.
I mean,
they're going to win the division.
Right? Yeah.
They're not any good. This division has usually produced 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, and it's doing it again this year. The Jaguars and Titans are 2 of the 5 worst teams in the league. When it was Colts and Texans by the end of the year in 2022, those were the 2 worst teams in the league playing each other in that pillow fight in Week 18. So that's another thing that just kind of adds to it. The bar is so low for the Colts. I understand that they haven't gotten quarterback right in the 10 years, right? Well, starting with the Andrew Luck injury parade and then into now. I understand that that's been a big bugaboo for them. But the Colts have had all of these games like Denver this year, like Houston in Week 18 last year, where if they just won this one game,
right,
the narrative around the entire season changes, and they continue to just fall on their face. 2021 in Jacksonville, all you got to do is go to Jacksonville and win, and you're in the playoffs, and you'd beaten the Patriots, and people would have felt good about that season, and instead it's 9-8, and it's this unmitigated disaster.
Let me ask you something, Derek. You're familiar with Guns N' Roses, right?
Yeah, from you.
So you're familiar with Sweet Child of Mine.
Mm-hmm.
There's the end of Sweet Child of Mine. They have like this long, I don't know what they call it, a riff or whatever.
Where did you go now?
Where do we go now? Where do we go now? Where do we go now? Where do we go?
Yeah.
Where do the Colts go now? What if Jim Irsay calls you on the phone?
Yeah.
And asks you simply, Derek, Jim, where do we go now? What do you say?
You have 2 paths to take here. You have only 2 paths. I feel very strongly about this. You have to fire Ballard and Steichen, or you got to keep them both.
Okay.
And you're stuck with Richardson. You got to give him a 3rd year. You have to. There's no other play. You painted yourself into a corner with
But if you fire Ballard and Steichen, are you hiring a general manager and a quarterback under the condition that they have to play Anthony Richardson?
You're stuck.
In that scenario, the dilemma you get into is presumably then you are taking a general manager and a head coach that are willing to take a job conditionally.
Yeah.
And the only people that take jobs conditionally are people either that are dying for a second chance or desperate for their first one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, and a new general manager might want to pay a bunch of money to Sam Darnold or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And bring in a veteran and say, I don't like this Richardson guy. He's a bust. He stinks. But I think the Colts really put themselves in a bad spot by decoupling Reich and Ballard and having Ballard hire another head coach. Because do I think, gun to my head, would I fire Shanestyken after 2 years? No. Even though I think he's pressed every button that he's pressed this year has been the wrong one. He looks like a guy that's in over his head. I think if you were to put Shanestyken in front of a TV and hand him a controller and have him be a head coach that way through a computer simulation, I think Shanestyken would do a great job. But part of the problem of being an NFL head coach is that you have to manage grown men and personalities and egos and say the right things to the media, and he hasn't done any of that.
Derek,
He's failed across the board. I mean, this back spasms thing with soreness, I mean, that was embarrassing. He put his quarterback in a horrible spot by doing that, by not being all the way honest about what was going on. And, that's what happens when you learn on the job. But this can't be a half measure. I know people are like, all right, Ballard's fired. Let's bring back Steichen. No. This can't be a half measure here. You've got to either clean house and then you got to, figure out ways to trade some of the pieces that you have and blow up this core and do all of that right now, or you have to just run it back.
Let me give you an example of where Shanestyken is, in fact, over his head. Nice guy. Like him. Good offensive mind, right? But to your point, I agree with everything you said. Now, we know about the viral, Pat McAfee allegation that players were showing up late for meetings and for treatments and etc. Bob Kravitz, our friend, asked Shanestyken point blank his reaction to that report. Mm-hmm. Shanestyken said, and I'm paraphrasing, look, you're going to have people that are going to be late from time to time. He's actually right. I mean, you and I have worked together for how long?
Yeah, and you've been late.
No.
I've never been late, but you've been late. Yeah, happens.
I'm late to me means 10 minutes early, right? But
I've started remotes without you before.
But you do have, hey, traffic was terrible, or hey, I just found out my mom's sick and I got to pick her up, whatever, right? I mean, but it's wording.
You can't say it.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the inexperience of not saying, Bob, I saw that report, and all I will say is we have a very clear line in the sand within this organization of expectation that players are to be on time all the time. And I'm not going to comment on whether or not that has been violated. I'm simply going to tell you that players are well aware that there are penalties and absolute 100% there are consequences if that is not upheld. Any of that took place, I'm going to keep in-house. But, yes, we are absolutely emphatic that is something that will not be tolerated within the Indianapolis Colts organization. Okay, great. Boom, move on. When you say, even though I get what he's saying, when you insinuate that, you are cracking the door open for guys to be like, yeah, I don't want to be there tomorrow. 8 a.m. for treatment, I don't want to be there. It is, again, not egregious, but naive.
Yeah. I mean, when you're interviewing for a job, you wouldn't say, yeah, sometimes that, I've been asked before, what would you do on the last hour of a Friday, like from 4 to 5 p.m.? And, your answer should be, well, I'm working. I'm on the clock, right? But in reality, we all do it, right? You're maybe checking your fantasy lineup or setting plans for the weekend or something like that. Now you wouldn't say that during your job.
You have no plans on weekends.
Oh, I do all the time. A very active social life. But we
okay.
We've all been there. Like if my employers watch, don't get me wrong. Like I'm a hard worker. I think you know that. I mean, I've carried this show for years. But sometimes it's human nature, right? Sometimes you're having a bad day and you show up a little bit late. It happens. But if you're the head coach of the team, you can't say that publicly. You can't just come out and be like, it's no big deal.
Point, I mean, the part about twice now he's put Anthony Richardson in terrible situations.
Yeah,
twice, right? The last 2 years, literally, every single thing by design for the Indianapolis Colts should be around the building, the development, the increased confidence, the pump up, the inflation of Anthony Richardson, and he has butchered that twice.
And it's a 180 from last year, Jake. Last year, I felt good about where the Colts were. I felt good about it. They were 9-8. I know they lost that disappointing game in Week 18, and the fourth down play with Minshew and Trey Sermon and all that. Or wait, was it Goodson? It was Goodson, I think. Whatever it was. It feels like 100 years ago now. I felt good about where they were. And Richardson flashed, and I thought Shanestyken squeezed a lot out of last year. I thought he did a great job last year. It's just gone entirely the other way this year, where I don't feel good about the job that he's done, and I don't feel good about the job that really anybody's done. I mean, I was thinking the other day, like, if we're going to talk about this season, individual performers, who do you feel really good about how they played?
Rigoberto Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean, DeForest Buckner, I think, is a great player. He did not play well on Sunday, but I think he's a great player. But there aren't a lot of guys where I'd be like, I felt really good about his season. And that actually segues us into our Hoagie and Hero of the Week. So we talk about the 2024 Colts dropping the ball. I have to tell you guys about dropping the ball a little bit. Yes, you may notice that there is no there's no Hoagie here. I did this once on the show, but then Vince screenshotted it, and they can do a lot of stuff with Photoshop that is not flattering. But speaking of Vince and the crew, so back in November when we were setting our holiday plans, Rake and I were texting back and forth, and he's like, well, what do you want to do for the holidays? Because, it's a little weird this week, right? This is New Year's Eve right now if you're watching this live. So I was like, well, let's not do the show Christmas Eve. We know we were going to punt that week, right? But New Year's Eve, instead of doing the show New Year's Eve, let's do it on the 30th, which is Monday.
Now, wait a minute. Is this airing on New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Are we
this is going to air, yeah. We're taping this early morning
So we're
Tuesday.
4.5 hours till the ball drops,
Yeah,
right?
so it's still 2024 when you're, well, I mean, it might be 2025 when you're watching this. But anyway, I'm having this text conversation with Greg. And this was like, I don't know, early November, right? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it Monday. And so we had set in stone, and I was like, okay, I'm going to set reminders on my calendar, and I go through my Microsoft Teams, and I have a paper calendar at home. I do all this stuff. For whatever reason, I didn't do it. I didn't write anything on the calendar, right? And then on Sunday, Vince actually sent a text to the group, and he said, okay, tomorrow, right? We're taping tomorrow. And I saw the text. I remember reading the text, and I was like, tomorrow? I was like, well, Vince must mean Tuesday. And I don't even know what day it is, right? It's the holidays. Like, I'm eating meat and cheese and cookies, and I've gained 50 pounds, whatever. I'm like comatose on time and calendar and all of that. And then yesterday at 9:30, I get another text from Vince, and he's like, you guys coming? And then I was like, oh, bleep. I screwed this up. And so Vince and poor Charlie, Vince is all the way on the south side. And then I don't even know where I think Charlie's in New Albany or something. And he has to drive all the way up here. I just made that up. I don't know if that's true, but he has a long drive. They came all the way up here yesterday.
You
for
told
us
people we'd
not
be
to
here
be,
yesterday, and you didn't tell me?
It's not Jake's fault at all. It's completely my fault. Completely my fault. So I know the thing is, we have a lot of goodwill with Vince.
Can I just say right now to the ISC Sports Network and the crew here who works diligently to put us on the air each and every week, starting at the top. I mean, starting at the top. The Gregs to Vince to Jordan, everybody. I apologize. I was unaware of this
Jake
blunder.
was not aware.
Like always,
that is true.
Showed up where I needed to be, when I needed to be there.
He didn't know, yeah.
I had no idea. Had you mentioned it to me, happily would have been here yesterday. Which leads me, by the way, to my hero of the week.
Well, let me just say,
I still have one, even without the sandwich.
Final sorry, though. Sorry to the crew and everybody. The good thing is that we've built up so much goodwill with Vince. We've never given him a hard time on the show, so he gets it. So I texted him yesterday. He's like, don't worry about it, buddy. Like, you've always treated me so well and spoke glowingly about his work on the show. And so it was good. So we're all good in that book. But, yeah, also no hoagies because on Sunday night I was in Bloomington. Ashley was like, we got to take James to an IU game. So we bought tickets for $8 to go see them shoot 1 of 20 from 3 against Winthrop. And I'm sitting there at Assembly Hall and my alarm's going off on my phone. It's like Hoagies and Hops pickup. And I'm like, oh, crap. I forgot hoagies. So I texted Jake, and you were in, Noblesville?
Yes.
Which you might as well be in Bangladesh if you're trying to get to Midtown from there.
True.
And this was at like
6:30
at night. Yeah. So so no sandwich either. So
Okay.
I dropped the ball on multiple fronts. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. Here's my hero of the week, even without the sandwiches. Okay. We are concluding 2024, heading into 2025. Derek and I, that means that we have been doing a program together for, 14 years now, something like that?
2025 will be the 15th
and
year.
We joke around a lot. We cut up a lot. But the other day, the two of us were talking, and we both basically were saying, like, this is a lot of fun. Doing this each and every week is a lot of fun, and it allows us to stay in touch with and keep connected. Great people that we've met, like Darren King and Matthew and Maine, and the different folks, Valerie, that have supported us and been around, that are friends, right? And none of that is possible, none of it, if it wasn't for those that continue to ride with us. And when you do a show like this and you have people that follow you and support you and listen to you and make it possible, you want those folks to know that the companies that we are representing and that are believing in us, that when they go to that business, they're going somewhere and we are sending them somewhere that we believe in. And so our heroes of the week are those that carry with us into 2025, starting with Bailey and Wood and Mike Wood and his group, which are absolutely fantastic. The very best, honest, in getting you the best mortgage rate, keeping you in your home or getting you a new home, whatever it may be. Bailey and Wood is not only the place that you want to go at bawfg.com, but in addition to that, Bailey and Wood giving back to the community. Every year it's a highlight for us, going to their golf outing to see the money that they disperse throughout different organizations, notably around their area of the south side of Indianapolis, but they continue to grow. So to have Bailey and Wood as the title sponsor on this program is something that Derek and I take with great pride, and we are honored and flattered to be able to carry their name with this show. In addition to that, once you get that home, maybe you've got a home that you need to remodel. Maybe you have a home that you're building and you want to make sure that everything is to the specification for your kitchen, your basement, whatever it might be. Chateau Kitchens has been really good to us. They've been excellent to us. They've done great work at Derek's house, and they've been good to the customers and the listeners of this show that we have sent to go there. And when you're inviting people into your own home, you want to make sure that they are people that are trustworthy, doing you right. Chateau Kitchens does exactly that. Hoagies and Hops, there's nothing better than the hoagie that we typically have at this time each week when Derek doesn't forget it.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. But Hoagies and Hops, one of the things you love about it, if you go to Hoagies and Hops on Boulevard, just south of Butler, you're going to see a passion for, as they call it, Philiopolis, the merging of Philadelphia and Indianapolis, because of the fact that it carries with it the theme of home for Philadelphia, but here in Indianapolis. And it's great on college football weekends when it's great outside, and you see people that care about their neighborhood, and that's what we love about Hoagies and Hops, aside from the fact that their sandwiches are the best you're going to get. And Chili Water right there. Chili Water, of course, working hand in hand with Hoagies and Hops. You can sit there, get yourself a cold beer. They have awesome beers on draft and in cans that you can take home with you. To have those folks along with IU Indy, who, by the way, and we're going to tell you about this, a chance for kids from Indianapolis Public Schools to see Division I basketball coming up this week to start the new year. We'll tell you about that. But IU Indy, it goes without saying, local Division I athletics right here in the heart of this city, and a lot of local kids doing it. All of those people coming together to make it possible for us to do this, all of them collectively are my heroes of the week.
Yeah, amen. Amen to all that for making this show possible. And
Derek will try not to screw anything up in 2025 and get his calendar straight.
And our best friendship, which is something else that we've tapped into on this show that has allowed it to continue and be such a fruitful partnership. Just the genuine love that the two hosts have for one another. Okay. And the understanding when one of the hosts screws up.
I mean, that was like 4 things you screwed up, right?
It was a tough week.
Like, you kind of need to get your life in order.
It's a tough week. I do. I
know.
I've showered like 3 times over the past like 2 weeks. My mother-in-law sent cookies, and they're so good. They're the ones with the Hershey Kisses in the middle. And I lost track of time. Alec Pierce is my hero of the week. I wanted to pick a Colt. And as I said, I can count on one hand how many Colts that you feel really good about their season. I feel good about the season that he had. I think all things considered.
Yes, I would agree.
767 yards and 6 touchdowns is pretty good for your third guy. And that's what Alec Pierce is. And he's kind of a one-trick pony, but he's good at that one trick. And look, Jake, it's not like, he caught 30-something balls. It's not like the Colts were competing, the quarterbacks were completing a ton of passes this year, right? So this wasn't going to be a high catch total type team. But he's in the final year of his rookie deal next year, and it'll be really interesting to see. If there is going to be a general manager change, it's going to be interesting to see the players that aren't locked in, how a new general manager would treat them. But we'll leave that conversation to a different day. I do think Alec Pierce, all things considered, had a pretty good season. And for our friends at Hoagies and Hops, I wanted to highlight the size. We always talk about the sandwiches. She has all kinds of house-made, family recipe sides to go with your Sandos, including the Blood Orange IPA hummus basket that they make in-house with the Blood Orange IPA from Chili Water Brewing, our pals there. The Peppadew pepper shooters, the prosciutto, it's delicious with a little Prove, a little balsamic in there. You've got the Nan's Redskin potato. It's the best potato salad I've ever had. If you like potato salad, it's delicious. And she even ships in the Hirsch chips right from PA. So great sides there at Hoagies and Hops, and they cater as well, hoagiesandhops.com. And our friends at Chili Water Brewing, because I forgot the beer because I wasn't at the sandwich shop too, so I forgot technically two things. But they put great beer together. And in 2025, Jake, my New Year's resolution is to not forget things.
Yeah, I mean, like, get your life together.
Yeah, not forget
Get
things.
it in order. You got like 4.5 hours now to get things put together.
We come back on the show.
You got a calendar right here. Like, look at this right here. I'll just show you. This is how it's done, Derek. You ready? And I mean, this is what you're witnessing right here is incredible maturity.
I've been in your apartment, so I know that you lack organizational skills.
Right here. I mean, everything's
That
right
calendar
there.
looks empty.
No.
Which is actually not super surprising because it's not IndyCar season. We're going to keep this pretty Colts heavy and pretty NFL heavy on the show, but there are a couple of other things to wrap up too. An update on the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton's up and down week. Notre Dame against Georgia and the college football playoff resuming. Indiana and Purdue returning to Big Ten play. So we'll touch on all of those along with the Colts stuff when we return. It's Bailey and Wood presents Corey and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC, which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in. It's going to be a long night.
Bailey and Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC,
Nice snap.
mortgage is a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Hi, welcome back. Corey and Schultz, final show of 2024. Happy New Year's Eve. Happy holidays. Hope it was a great Christmas. I know Hanukkah was late this year. Hanukkah started Christmas night.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know exactly how, is that as late as it can possibly go? Because it felt like a couple of years ago it started right after
it's
Thanksgiving.
Usually kind of right in the
and it's
begin-
one of the,
beginning of
it's the
December.
earliest. I feel like we had one of the earliest starts or the latest starts, but all of our Jewish friends and listeners as well, happy holidays and happy Hanukkah to you as well, and happy Kwanzaa and, all the holidays, whatever you celebrate, or even if you don't celebrate anything and you just lay around in sweatpants like I've been doing. Hope you've
clearly.
enjoyed the break. Hope you've had a break to enjoy, and thanks so much for making us a part of your Tuesday as normal, even though obviously today is not a normal day. A couple of non-Colts things to get to.
By the way, in terms of the screw-ups that have taken place,
Yeah, sorry. We were out of commission last week, so really we haven't been with you in 2 weeks. And if I remember right, I think the Pacers had just beaten the Pelicans. They'd beaten the Sixers and Pelicans right at home. So they'd beaten a couple of bad teams, but they were down pretty bad. And we were talking about, can the Pacers recover from this? They put together a 5-game winning streak, which I know doesn't sound like much, but it got them back to 500 temporarily. They go out west and they win in Phoenix, and they beat LA and they beat Sacramento as well. So that felt really good.
they beat the Warriors too, right?
Or the Warriors, yeah. So that's what it was, not LA.
Yeah.
Gave 2 of those games back, right, with a kind of a frustrating game that you led most of the way against Oklahoma City where Tyrese Halliburton did not play well. Then you split with Boston, which with the way Boston is, that's all you can really hope for, I think,
Right.
is to split. And then Halliburton comes back with one of the best games this season. I still think, Jake, when they get Aaron Nesmith back, I think this team's going to be fine.
I would agree with that.
I think they're going to be fine.
Because what we've learned is this, Derek. The Pacers have, Tyrese Halliburton is an elite level player when he's on. Part of the maturation of the NBA is figuring out how to be an elite level player nightly. And teams now are guarding him differently. He's getting doubled. He got doubled almost that entire Oklahoma City game. And, for example, and I don't know the age difference. Matter of fact, he may be older than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but Gilgeous-Alexander in that game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse,
Shai's like 2 years older.
he had 45, yeah. I mean, look, he wasn't going to be denied, right? I mean, late in that game, he had a shot, did Gilgeous-Alexander. There's nothing you can do but tip your cap to it because they were all over him. He's a great player. What we've learned, I think, is that as great as Halliburton is, and he's a great player, even when he has nights where he is not necessarily offensively aggressive, their key parts are Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith to a great extent, and notably Nembhard. Their record without Andrew Nembhard is drastically different than when Nembhard's on the floor. And when he's on the floor, Nembhard, because of his ability to play, he's a very good defender. He's good on the ball defender, a little bit undersized, but depending on who he's guarding. But he also is just he's a clock is winding down, he's going to get a shot for you guy. And his mid-range game is superlative. He has ice water in his veins 90% of the time. I think Nembhard, we're learning, as great as Halliburton is and as great as Siakam is, Nembhard's kind of their key piston that keeps the engine going. And when he's out there, they're a different team. So you get Nesmith as well that brings a defensive presence about him. You're back to getting closer to running the way they were at the end of last year. And we forget that at this point last year, they had not yet hit their stride. So I don't think it's time to panic just yet. And the other thing that helps them is the East also, with the exception of, Boston, Cleveland, the East, there are a lot of teams that are still finding their way.
Yeah,
so
I think New York is getting up there now, too. They've really found themselves here with Mikal Bridges playing so well. But, somebody else, Ben Shepherd, I think, has played a good role in this surge. I don't think it's a coincidence that the 6-2 stretch has come with Nembhard back in the lineup, right? I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the problem for Halliburton, and this is going to continue to be the problem if we're kind of forecasting out, the Pacers can't afford for Tyrese Halliburton to be the 37th best player in the NBA.
Correct.
He's got to be closer to the 10th best player in the NBA. And that's what he's being paid to do. He's being paid to, I don't even need him to be – SGA is one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA right now, at least with how this season has gone. I don't even need Tyrese Halliburton to be there, but he's got to firmly be a top 10 player.
Right.
And the disappearing acts and being non-factors and things like that, it can't happen. Over an 82-game season, you're going to have 1 and 2 of those nights. You can't have 8 or 9 of those nights, and that's what he's on pace to do. And that can't happen. He's got to be better than that. You're right. He's not going to be a top 10 player every night, but you need him to be that far more often than not. And unfortunately, it's been too few and far between for him. Indiana and Purdue both returning to Big Ten play. Indiana's turned out all those non-league games. Winthrop is not a team that should challenge them, and that was a 2-point game with 3 minutes left. Part of that is shooting 1 of 20 from 3, but I'm not going to get into this Umar Balo thing, being out at upstairs or wherever he was, and then maybe being suspended. Who knows? It just the vibes around IU right now are not good. Like I feel like talent-wise, this should be a tournament team. This should firmly be a tournament team, right? But I don't know. It feels like there's just a lot of storm clouds. If they're not going to be able to shoot, and if they're going to have like some issues like this Balo thing or whatever else, then
for those that don't know,
doesn't feel great.
Umar Balo is the player who had transferred from Arizona. Previously, he was at Gonzaga. Came to Indiana reportedly for somewhere between $1.25 or $2 million, depending on who you ask. But he clearly got NIL money to come to Indiana. Good player, an important low post player for them. But he did not play against Winthrop. Mike Woodson was very non-committal on the reason why, saying that he would later discuss it, but he wasn't ready to discuss then. And then somebody posts a picture of Balo out at Upstairs Pub, which is a popular Bloomington bar.
The best.
And it was late the night before. Granted, it was a 4 o'clock in the afternoon game. To be fair, it was one photo. We have no idea, A, if it's legitimate, B, if it was from that night. It could have been from July for all we know. And C, it's possible that he wanted to pick up carryout. Probably not, but it's possible. Either way, this seems to be par for the course, though, of Mike Woodson not saying what it is, so that leads to speculation, and it just feels like a program that has not had much direction, leadership, or defined principle for a couple of years.
They don't play very fun basketball either. It's just not a fun. I was there Sunday. There's no energy in the building. It's just. I guess that happens when you shoot 1 of 20 from 3. But
1 of 20 from 3 is
brutal.
Insane,
and a lot of those were open. Luke Goody must have missed 6 or 7 wide open
9,
threes.
Right.
And in Balo's defense, I did not see an AMF in his hand, so I didn't know. I just wanted to point that out. I did not see an AMF in his hand.
Derek. 5% of our audience knows what.
You're underselling it. A lot of people know AMF. Because even if you didn't go to IU, you went to Bloomington to party. Look, I know I work for Purdue and all of that, but like when it comes to like going somewhere to party, you go to Bloomington. And upstairs was always the nightcap for us. We had my buddy TJ and Clark had a place at Henderson Crossing, and then our buddy Kyle, God rest his soul, we had a mattress in the breakfast nook. So technically 3 people slept in that 2-bedroom apartment, and I think Mueller was there for a while, so there were technically 4 people in there. But we would go to upstairs for the nightcap and then walk back to Henderson Crossing and crash there. But AMF was always the last drink, and that was kind of the goodbye drink. Well, the first word is goodbye in Spanish, adios. And I'll let you guys understand. You guys can come up with what MF is. But it was a blue drink, and it had a bunch of delicious spirits in there. I don't even know what they put in there. It was awesome.
How much is an AMF?
I think it was $8. $6?
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know. I don't know how much that was. I don't know how much it is now. I haven't had an AMF in 20 years. But yeah, that was always the nightcap one.
Upstairs is a cool place.
I'm really happy during my AMF era that social media wasn't really around. Like Facebook had just started my senior year of college, but it wasn't like you post stuff on Facebook.
Right.
It was just you had a wall, remember?
Didn't you poke people?
Yeah, I used to poke them.
By the way, speaking of that, real quick, Derek, I saw a video yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm poking you on Facebook.
What are you doing? Okay.
I'm poking you.
Okay.
I saw a video. Speaking of Facebook, or it might have been Instagram. I don't know. You're scrolling one of them, and every once in a while, like a video will just pop up, and it was somebody's VHS home video of the last day of school from 1999 in high school.
Oh,
is that
awesome.
your class?
I was 01.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have been in high school in 99.
And they were asking all of these kids their favorite song.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess the 4 most common musical artists that were mentioned?
In 1999?
Yes.
Britney Spears?
She got a vote.
What other songs were big in 1999? Dr. Dre's Chronic didn't come out until 2000, I think, so I wouldn't have said 99 for there.
Chronic was out in 93.
No, but the other one with Eminem and like the next big Chronic 2001 was what it was called. Yeah, 93 was the one with Snoop and all, even though Snoop was on the Chronic, but that was such a huge album. Oh my God, that Kryptonite 3 Doors Down song, wasn't that huge in 99?
That's good. And Creed wasn't mentioned either.
Creed was not mentioned?
No.
Because that would have been
they said more.
99.
I think they said more like, who are you listening to?
Backstreet Boys?
Think about your
Eminem?
NSYNC was mentioned.
NSYNC, okay.
Think about your back tattoo.
Sublime?
Sublime
oh, wow,
was
Sublime,
mentioned.
because Sublime would have been more like 96, 97.
Sublime was mentioned.
I thought, yeah.
It was seniors, and it must have been the end of the year because several people said graduate.
Oh, Third Eye Blind?
Third Eye Blind.
That
album's awesome.
Yeah.
That album is great.
Ryan Davis, Greg Rakestraw, remember that name, was the biggest Third Eye Blind fan. He must have seen him 600 times in concert. He used to work with us at the old
I had somebody that told me out at one of the venues locally that they were the biggest diva band they ever dealt with.
Really?
Yep.
That's
and then the last one that was mentioned was Tupac.
okay, yeah. 99 was also, Middle of Nowhere was 97.
Who's that?
The Hanson Breakthrough album. But
Yeah, no.
Snowed In would have been 98, and that went multiple platinum. So 99 might not have been right in the wheelhouse there for Hanson, but I'll watch the video. I'm sure there were a couple of Hanson mentions in there too.
No.
And then finally, Notre Dame and Georgia. That is going to take place on Wednesday night. We're taping this right now on Tuesday, so tomorrow night. And a lot of people feel like it's a 50-50 coin flip game and kind of like a if not now, then when for Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is going to the national championship game.
This is
where they will face Ohio State.
The path looks good. And, yeah, you got to be feeling crappy if you're Oregon, right? You got to be feeling really crappy about that. But
Oregon, hey, we're the only undefeated. We're the number 1 team in the country. Our reward is to get Ohio State, who, when they're on, is probably the best team in the country. And then if we beat them for a second time this year, we get to go play Texas in Texas.
I will say this. I know it's dated because, we haven't been on the show in 2 weeks, but I went to Notre Dame Stadium for the Notre Dame IU game, and I thought the atmosphere was tremendous. And I thought it was really cool to have 4 playoff games at home venues. People are like, well, you got to play this in Tampa. No, but I don't want to see it on a neutral field. I don't. There was a lot of energy in the building. I thought it put IU and SMU and all these other teams at a huge disadvantage. but them's the breaks.
But here's the thing. I'm so tired of people like, these playoff rankings are terrible. I'm like, it's the play. Like,
the game does not change the season.
Right.
Indiana deserved the spot.
And not only that,
spot.
These people that were outraged that Indiana got in or SMU got in because, look, they weren't even competitive. And I'm like, do you see what happens when the 8 seed plays the 1 in the NBA?
I know, yeah.
That's what happens. That's why, I mean, what happens when the 9 seed in round 2 plays a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament? If they beat them, it's a huge upset. Yeah. There's a reason why. Same thing.
I just think the Alabama argument, it misses me because Oklahoma stinks, and they ran them off the field. Yeah. You know, Alabama did not lose to Oklahoma 24-23. They lost to them by 3 touchdowns. They scored 3 points against a team that doesn't even have a functional offense. And I know there were some pick sixes in there. That was an elimination loss to me. I don't care. You know, did Indiana beat anybody this year? No, they didn't. They also
didn't lose to anybody.
Indiana did not beat anybody this year. They didn't get run off the field by Oklahoma.
Right.
Okay? And SMU actually did have a couple of good wins. But, yeah, it is what it is. The one thing that disheartened me about Indiana's performance is that they played so timid.
They did.
And look, Notre Dame was better than them. Notre Dame's strengths were IU's strengths, and Notre Dame has better players. But Indiana, I wanted to see Indiana go down swinging, and they didn't. Outside of garbage time, they didn't swing.
Curt Cignetti's bravado was needed by Indiana in the moments all year long, but he went one step too far.
Yeah,
it didn't impact that game against Notre Dame, but a lot of the narrative against Indiana was because of the fact that he went on College Game Day and he thought he was still on the McAfee show. And he should have probably taken one last shot.
I just thought it was, and you know, as much as he's won, and Curt Cignetti has a great track record, he's never coached a game like that game. Not even close.
Right.
And for him to get on that stage and punt in plus territory and be afraid to throw the ball, like, I just thought it was a bad look for IU to go out like that. Like, maybe IU didn't have the horses. Maybe IU wasn't going to beat Notre Dame regardless of what you did, but I still thought they could have done more than what they did. They were a better team. Indiana was a much better team than what they showed in that game.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's not me being like an IU honk. I was disappointed with that effort. So we'll see. Which game are you most? Is it Notre Dame, Georgia? Are you most excited about? I mean, I'm most excited about Oregon, Ohio State.
Well, I
think that's going to be a tremendous game.
I like games, great games where you don't have any emotional investment because then you can. And
you hate Notre Dame and Ohio State. So
here's the thing. I really like Marcus Freeman.
Okay.
I just think he seems like a cool guy. And you know, I can respect Notre Dame. So that's fine. I hate Ohio State.
No.
I hate them. So I really want Ohio State to lose. I think, honestly, the game that I'm most excited about is Texas-Arizona State, just because I know nothing about Arizona State.
Yeah.
I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great if Arizona State won the whole thing.
It'd be hilarious if Boise smoked
or Boise,
Penn State, right, too, because everybody's kind of writing off their chances, both of those teams,
right,
for getting in. But it does sound like they're going to change some of the seeding, which they should. I mean, you know, there's no reason for Penn State to be playing Boise as the Big Ten runner-up and Oregon getting Ohio State.
Jags report or Bida Bullschultz coming up?
Yeah, so we'll do quick hits and then Jags report when we come back.
Okay.
And then Bida Bleep to end 2024. It's Corey and Schultz, episode 217, I think, on the ISC Sports Network.
Illinois, 217, right?
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves.
Hi there, welcome back. My name is Jake Query. Derek Schultz is to my left. It is Query and Schultz, the incredibly creatively and appropriately named and charitably award-winning Query and Schultz program here on the ISC Sports Network. It is time for, here he is right here. Greg brought him back. The IU Indy Jags report, which I love. That means our Jag right here. And I love this, by the way. If you have children that are at Indianapolis Public Schools, pay attention because your chance to see Division I athletics. And one of the things I love about IU Indy, maybe a chance for some kids to even get exposed just to the college atmosphere, college environment, by getting introduced to college athletics when it comes to IU Indy. We're going to talk women's and men's basketball with this IU Indy Jags report. As always, keep in mind when it comes to tickets for IU Indy, you can find them at iuindyjags.com/tickets. IUIndyJags.com/tickets. That's IUIndyJags.com/tickets. IU Indy women's basketball. We'll begin with that. They went down to Florida. They soaked in the sun. Unfortunately, were not able to soak in a win. They were 0-2 at the Florida Gulf Coast Holiday Classic. But the good news is they came back for conference play and got right into it by beating Youngstown State in the jungle, 65-50. Faith Stinson had 22 points, 8 boards for the Jags. They are at Detroit Mercy. That will be tomorrow, talking about New Year's Day in Detroit Mercy to start things off, or not on the road at least, for conference play. Then home on January 4th against Robert Morris. January 4th at home for the IU Indy women's basketball team. Men's side fell to Florida International in South Beach, 75-69, just before the Christmas break. But then they fell to Milwaukee, which Milwaukee in the horizon,
really good.
Probably the favorite, right, to win the league. But in that loss to Milwaukee, by the way, Sean Craig did have 22 and 8. They return home to the Coliseum on New Year's Day. Now, this is very cool because the Coliseum, which is now Corteva or Corteva Coliseum? Corteva Coliseum.
Yeah.
Right?
Corteva.
That's the Coliseum at the fairgrounds.
Yes.
I'm getting at. They are going to be playing there for IPS Family Day, New Year's Day against Youngstown. This is free for IPS students. I absolutely love this. You're going to find all the information at IUIndyJags.com/tickets. But again, Youngstown, so you've got obviously a Horizon League game, IPS Family Day. Paul Corsaro's got those guys. I'm telling you, I've talked to several people now that are like, look, Jake, this guy's going to win and win big at IU Indy in his first year coming from UIndy. Local players right here, Central Indiana, women's and men's side of things. Plenty of chances to start out 2025 by supporting Division I athletes that are right here in Central Indiana. And I love that they're doing the IPS Day, Derek, because what I always say, when I was a kid, this was my chance to see Division I teams and go out with my dad and watch games, and you get to see the Jags.
And they're doing the Metros game on the 25th, and
we're going, right?
Yeah, I was going to ping Ed and Lauren and everybody over there and let them know. Well, the problem is that when you and I show up anywhere, it's kind of a big deal. So I like to give as much warning as possible that, hey, Jake and Derek will be arriving at your event.
I'll go online. I'll go to IUIndyJags.com/tickets. I will. I will buy us 2 tickets.
We're going to get the tickets, but I want them to know that we're coming.
No,
it's important for them to know.
And here's the thing: don't screw it up and forget about putting it in your calendar.
Okay, it's already on my calendar in permanent.
Well,
ink.
we saw how well that worked out
in permanent ink.
The sandwiches.
Quick hits-wise, a couple of farewells to give to obviously very important figures, especially in their realm. Even though I think obviously the Jimmy Carter's realm, I think, goes beyond even being the former president. Really a remarkable life, and I fully understand. I was born in 1983, so I was not here for Jimmy Carter's presidency. But kind of like you, I like history,
right?
And I've read up on changing trends in American life, and that period in the late 70s was not a fun time in America, period. And I know that maybe his time in office was not remembered very fondly, even though some of those things were just circumstance and luck, I feel like. But he personified the public servant aspect of the office.
Yeah, I think you could say, while others maybe match it, as decent a human being and humanitarian in his post-presidency as any person ever to hold the office.
Which he didn't have to do, because some presidents don't do that, or if they do that, you're paying them to give speaking gigs or whatever else. And I think Jimmy Carter made it a mission for him to better society by being involved in all of these things.
Right.
And, to live to 100 and all of that too. I mean, Jimmy Carter's just one of those. I mean, we've lost, Reagan and George Bush Sr. And,
Derek,
he was always the constant.
This is an amazing statistic to me. I'm 52 years old, okay? So many of my high school classmates, I'm the oldest of my grade because I was born in September. So half of my classmates, half of my friends were born in 73, the first 6 months of 73, okay? If you were born after January 23rd of 1973, which means you'd be 50, soon to be, 52 years old, you're 51 years old, Jimmy Carter is the first Democratic president you've seen pass away. Having nothing to do with the party, that's a stat. Like that's an amazing stat.
Yeah, wow.
That he is the first Democratic president to pass away since, I believe, Lyndon Johnson.
Well, yeah, I mean, besides the current sitting president and Joe Biden, the only other two were young when they took office, right?
Correct.
Bill Clinton
Correct.
and Barack Obama. So, that's probably part of that too. But we also lost Greg Gumbel.
Yeah.
And I just can't – he's been so omnipresent in sports as a studio host. And I know he did play-by-play for the NFL and other sports too.
Derek,
multiple platforms.
when you
and
think
it's hard
of
to
Greg
picture
Gumbel, don't you automatically think of these are the Thursday, Saturday games in Boise.
Yeah,
the 2
exactly.
seed will
Yeah.
be Indiana. The Hoosiers
So
find their way in.
synonymous.
Yeah,
So synonymous with, but also like the live look-ins. Let's go back to the studio and Greg Gumbel and let's go to, let's go to Charlotte right now where the 5 seed Virginia is in some trouble against the 12 seed Richmond. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you miss that.
it just feels like home, right? You know what I mean?
And kind of old school because like I felt like Greg Gumbel was one of those guys that never really broke character. And when he did break character, it must have been something like really ridiculous or really funny, like that clip of Charles Barkley talking about showering in his uniform.
Right.
And Greg Gumbel's like the ultimate pro, but even he's like trying not to burst out laughing.
Bryant Gumbel, who I think is a mega talent, but who apparently has an ego the size of, the globe. But Bryant Gumbel is the younger brother of Greg. I think you could make the argument that at their apex, Bryant Gumbel had the bigger stardom, but Greg Gumbel had the much greater longevity and consistency over the course of his career.
Yeah, I would argue that Greg Gumbel connected with people.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
much more than Brian Gumbel,
Correct.
who always seemed kind of smarmy.
Totally.
I was never a Brian Gumbel fan either. My dad hated him, but everybody liked Greg Gumbel.
I also thought Brian
My
Gumbel was
parents,
cool, though.
my parents were big Today Show watchers, so yeah, they didn't like him, and that was around when he was at his apex, right? Early '90s. Yeah, Today Show. Farewell to two obviously big. I wasn't aware that Greg Gumbel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Cancer, and I don't know how many people
and
knew
some
that.
people keep it private, which is the way that he would go. I would feel like he's not one to toot his own horn. We come back on the show, Bite or Bull Bleep, and we will wrap things up for 2024. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC, which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in, it's going to be a long night.
Bailey and Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC,
Nice snap.
mortgage is a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back for final time in 2024. It's Corey and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network alongside Jake. I'm Derek. Yeah, when we enter 2025, it'll be year 15. Man, because 2011 started the show, right?
That's right.
12, 13, like you say, when your resume. That was the best thing about getting cut in January of 2020. Got to say, 2011 to
That's
2020 sounds like a decade. It was more like 8.5 years, but it sounds like a decade, which was nice. Hard to believe, and maybe, I stopped kind of reflecting on this a while ago because, life changes and things, and you move on, right? But kind of hard to believe that 5 years ago, we're coming up on 5 years since the radio show ended, which doesn't feel like that long ago, mostly because we've maintained our best friendship and maintained
So if
this
it's
show
been
for the most part.
5 years since the radio show ended, it's been 4.5 since you were calling me daily.
What are we going to do? Yeah. It was,
In a panic.
we handled that situation slightly differently, I would say. But then again, you had already been fired four or five previous times. I had
Yeah, it was
not been
thrice,
fired.
yep.
Yeah, outside of Joe Capuano painting, I had not been fired.
You got fired
before
from there?
in my life? Yeah.
For what?
I don't think I'm going to talk about that on the air. My dad watches this show.
Does he know you got fired?
Yeah, but I don't want to rehash that. Yeah.
Hash a
it was
keyword there?
nothing. No, just relax. That may or may not have been a theme of what happened, but yeah. But Bite or Bowl Bleep. Let's talk about that and our friends at Chateau Kitchens. Whether it be your kitchen, stop looking at me like that. Your kitchen, your bathroom, your basement, anything on the interior of your home. Chateau Kitchens can help you out with your next home project, 2025, 2026. If you're looking ahead, go to chateaukitchens.com. Go to Instagram and Facebook at Chateau Kitchens and see the before and after pictures. They do outstanding work. Here's what we do with Bite or Bowl Bleep. I give a statement. Jake and I go back and forth whether we bite or it's Bowl Bleep. Statement 1. Colts ownership will have to be inherited, not given. Bite or Bowl Bleep. What I mean by that is a lot of people are talking about, hey, is there going to be a transition here? Like, is Jim Irsay still going to be living and not be in the seat as the owner? Or is it going to have to be after he passes? Would he not give that up while he is still here? I know it's kind of morbid to think about, but it's something to think about.
The daughters are now listed officially as co-owners,
Yeah.
right? But yes, I believe that Jim Irsay, so long as he is living, will be the one who is making final
The main
decisions.
decision maker.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Me too. I literally had a friend text me that yesterday, and I was like, that'd actually be maybe a good Bite or Bowl Bleep topic. And I know it's,
It is. I mean,
we don't want Jim Irsay to go away, right? He has a good heart, and I really like and respect Jim Irsay, but I don't think there's going to be some sort of like and he's certainly not going to transition it when the franchise is in disarray. I don't think his pride would let him do that. Statement number 2: you can't go wrong with your NFL MVP pick this season. Bite or Bowl Bleep?
Bullshits, because whichever one you pick, there's going to be a case the other way.
But do you feel strongly about anybody?
I think Allen or Jackson, right?
Yeah, but still, there's an or in there. Like, let's say, okay, like I feel like it should be Josh Allen, but let's say if Lamar Jackson won, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
I'd agree. I mean, that's fair.
Hell, if the Bengals make the playoffs and you want to vote for Joe Burrow, I think you could do that too.
I would agree with that,
and I wouldn't care
because Burrow's had a lot of injury around
Yeah.
him, and he's maintained the course.
Saquon, I don't think you should get it. I don't think a running back should get it.
I would agree with that.
But look, as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, I don't think you can go wrong with any of those guys. I think they've all had fantastic seasons. Statement 3: New Year's Eve parties are overrated.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, New Year's Eve parties are okay.
Yeah, those are fun.
But New Year's Eve parties,
New Year's
yes.
Eve parties, I don't know.
I have one for you.
$75 a plate, and you got to get all dressed up. Yeah. We always watched like Howard Stern and drank ginger ale in the basement. That used to be my New Year's Eve party. And then MTV. Remember when MTV was still cool? My dad took me in one time on New Year's Eve beforehand, and we went up into the Viacom building to see it and everything.
Cool.
I mean, it was like noon on New Year's Eve or whatever. But that was kind of.
I've always wanted to do New Year's Eve in Times Square once.
Yeah, it was. You can't pee, and it's a lot of standing, and it's cold.
What time do you have to get there?
Early.
I mean, could you literally find your way there at 10:30?
In the morning?
No, in the evening.
Oh no. Because we got there.
Well, like if you try to take the subway train and come up the steps.
I mean, this was like 30 years ago when I was down there, but it was. We got down there evening, and I was with some high school friends, and we were way back, and nobody had public restrooms anywhere. It was awful. You're just holding your pee the entire time.
Okay, here's
we got
one
30
for
seconds.
You.
Hurry.
The college football national champion will be a Big Ten team or from Indiana.
Bowl Bleep. I'm going to take the field. Hoagies and Hops, thank you. Chateau Kitchens, thank you very much. And our friends at Chili Water
Indy.
Brewing, IU Indy
Jags.
Athletics, Bailey and Wood. Have a wonderful, happy, safe New Year. We will see you in 2025. It's Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. Bye.
At Bailey and Wood,